Hello guys, welcome to Code Prava. So today we are going to make a mini project which has been asked by some good number of companies during the interviews for a front-end role. For example, we have 4 players and we have to spin this bottle and we have to find a random person out of these players. So let's spin the bottle using this spinner and I can see that I found player number 4. Let's try to spin it again. This time player number 2. This time player number 3. And this time again player number 4. So how can we achieve this? How can we make this? Let's learn into this video. So as you can see, I have created one folder named bottle spinner, and inside my image folder there is a bottle which we will be using for the spinning purpose. Now let's create one HTML file, that is index.html, then one CSS file, that is style.css, and for functionality purpose we will be needing one JavaScript file. So let's create script.js. So I'll use boilerplate code for HTML and I'll name this document as bottle spinner. Okay, so as you can see, my project is started here, that is bottle spinner. So in order to start with, I will link my CSS with this HTML file because I know my style is just sitting beside this HTML file. So I'll be linking it here, and I'm in my body tag. I'll create a div with class as main. So inside this main div, I have to create a container div, means a div with class name of container. So I can use some shortcut trick, that is div.container. And when I'll hit enter, it will create a div with class name of container. You can use these shortcut tricks to make your work life very easy. So I'll create a player 1 here. So as you can see, it's rendering. I will just copy it 3 more times because I want 4 players. Player 2, 3 and 4. And then I want to render my image, which will be bottle image. And I know it's sitting inside my bottle folder. So I will give images/bottle.png. And now I need some alternative text. I will give as bottle spinner. As you can see, the bottle is rendering here, but the height of bottle is not what we want actually. So I'll limit my height to 400 pixels. Yeah, it's good to go now. And also I want to assign some ID. So I'll write bottle, which will be identifying this image element with this ID of bottle. I want one more thing, that is one button, which I want to create after this, like outside this container div. So I'll create a button with a text of click to spin. Fine, it's rendering here. Now let's go into CSS. And before writing the actual CSS for anything, I will set some rules for my global CSS where I want padding to be 0, same with margin, and I want box sizing to border box. So as you can see, extra paddings and margins are gone. Now I'll give my body some background color. So you can give any color you want. I'm going with some random color. Fine. I can see the changes here. Now let's go for the main container, which is the outermost layer after body. So I want width to be used of 100%, but I want height to be limited only to 600 pixel, which will limit my viewport because I don't want to take the height of whole screen. I want to limit myself. So that's why I'm putting my height to 600 pixels. Then I'll put position to absolute and display to be flex. So as you can see, the button has spread it here, but I need to fix it. So I'll justify content to center and align items to center. So everything is into the center, but again, the player section, the bottle and button is not looking very good, which will be working into the container part. So let's fix the container first. Container is containing the players and this bottle. So let's work on that. So for my container, I want to utilize width of 500 pixel, same with the height, 500 pixel. And as you can see, the button has gone. As you can see, button has gone into right because I'm utilizing 500 pixels of width here, which I'll be just fixing in a minute. So currently my focus is on this players and this bottle. So I'll give a display of flags, and I want my items into center. So I'll say justify content into center and align items to center. So you can see everything is into center, but it is side by side. So I'll give a position of absolute, which is looking more weird, but we have to work on it. Also for background, I want a radial gradient. I want a circle type of gradient starting from some color, that is F0 EDE. You can give a color of your choice, and the ending color I want FAE BD7, something like this. So as you can see, it's a 500 by 500 square, which I don't want exactly. What I want a circle. So I'll say border radius of 50%. So it's a circle. We are reshaping our HTML page, as you can see. Now let's work on these players, which are inside this container, and they are written into paragraph. So I'll say take your position to absolute. You will not be able to see, but all the players are now into very center, sitting onto top of each other. So what I'll do, so I can use the nth child selector, and for the first child I will say take this into very top, means top is 0. So my player 1 has moved where the top is 0 for this container. Now for the second child, which I can select with this nth child selector again, I will say let's move it to right. So right 0. So player 2 is here now. Similarly for third child, which I am putting it into bottom, and fourth child I'll be putting into the left of the circle. So as you can see, button is not visible here. Let's work on button. And the first thing I will do, position as absolute, which will show the button into the very center of this circle. Then I want to move it into the bottom side. So it's here now. I will give some height to this. Let's say 40 pixels and width of 120 pixel. I'll say background color. You can give any color of your choice. I am going with a little bit of greenish color. I want the color, that is the text, of white. I don't want any border, which is looking very bad, so I'll say none. I want a little bit of box shadow to give it a good look, so I'll say 0, 4 pixel, 6 pixel, and you can see a little bit of shadow here. Then I want transition to be 0.3 second. So whenever I click on it or I hover on it, it will be a smooth transition. And I want a little bit of border radius, let's say 2 pixel. Yeah, it's looking good for me now. And whenever I'm hovering on the button, there is no any color change, which I want. So I'll say button, and with the hover, I will say background color, a little bit of darker shade. So 16A085. So whenever I hover on this, you can see it's changing, and the change is being very smooth. Now I want to add some drop shadow on my bottle, which I will doing just before the button. And as you remember, I have given an ID of bottle to this image. So what I can do, I can select this bottle with the ID. So I am adding some drop shadow to this bottle, which is giving it a 3D type of look, which is looking very nice. And let's go to script now. So before going into the script, I need to link it into the HTML file, where I'll mention source as script.js. So let's go into the script part now. So basically I'm interested in to rotate this bottle. So let's select the bottle. So I'll say const bottle, and I can use the document.getElementById to select this bottle using the ID, and I can remember the ID was bottle, right? And I need to rotate this bottle. So let's declare one variable, that is current rotation, and initialize it with 0. And I will declare one function which will spin this bottle. So let's say spin bottle, which is a function. So I need to rotate this bottle. So I will generate a random number between 0 to 360. How can I do that? So I can just declare one variable, rotation increment, and I will say math.floor because I want the actual value, and I will say math.random, which will generate a random number between 0 and 1, and I will multiply that with 360. So what it will do? It is going to generate an integer value between 0 to 360. So after I have generated the rotation increment, I will update my current rotation with this rotation increment. So I will simply add this value into my current rotation. And then I would apply this rotation value onto this bottle. So I need to change the style of bottle. So I'll say bottle.style.transform, and I need to update the rotation property. So I will use backticks to rotate this. And for example, I have to write like 360 degree. So instead of this 360 number, I will use variable current rotation. So we have completed this spin bottle function. Now we have to call this function on the click of this button. So whenever this button will be clicked, I will simply call this function. Let's try to click on this button. So as you can see, it's rotating, but there is no any animation or visualization how it is rotating. That we can add into our CSS. So I'll open my CSS, and onto the bottle, I'll add one property, that transition, and I want that this transition property should be applied for transform, and it should take 2 seconds. So for example, if I click here, you can see it's spinning, but it is not looking realistic because when a bottle is about to stop, the rotation should be slow. So there is a property that is ease out. What it does, it will do the animation with the same pace, but as the end is reaching, it will slow down the animation. So let's visualize it. So for example, if I'm clicking here, you can see it's stopping very slow. But again, it's not looking very realistic because it is not completing any rotation. For small angles, as you can see, it is just rotating few degrees. So what we can do, instead of generating this rotation of 360, we can generate maybe more than 720. 720 means there will be at least 2 rotations possible. So let's try to generate a random number between 720 and 1440. So what I can do, I can generate a random number between 720 and 0. But again, for the lower angles, it is not going to rotate. So I will add 720 more into it. So the random number generated here will be 720 to 1440. So let's give it a try. So you can see it has to rotate at least 2 times before coming onto any of the names. Now, the further question can arise. So if this bottle is stopping between 2 names, how will you decide which name is the actual outcome? So this cross question you can assume into the interviews. So in order to solve this, what I'm going to do, I'll create another function. I will not touch this function. So let's create a spin bottle 2. And what I will do here, I will create an array of rotations. Let's say 0, 90, 180 and 270, because these are the positions where player are sitting 0, 90, 180, 270 and 0 again in terms of 360. And for the rotation factor, what I will do, I will say for the rotation increment, I would say math.flow, and I will get a random number between 0 and 3, because 0 index start from here and 3 is the last index. Here I am using the floor value. So it will give me a random number between 0 and 3, which I can use as the random index of this rotation. So what I'll do, so I will add 720 plus a random number between 0 to 270 into this rotations array. So I can use the rotation increment index here. And with the use of this random increment, I will able to access randomly any of these angles, and I'll be adding that into 720. Maybe I can add in 1440 or maybe 360 into 3 times 1080 to get a 3 rotations at least, but I am good with 2 rotations at least here. And then the same line I have to do it here. I'll just copy and paste it here. And before trying it, let's update the function with bottle spin 2. And if I'll try it now, it was for the 0 rotation. It is for 270. So it's never going to stop in between the names. It will always stop on some name. So what is the next step? If you want to create a dynamic game where you are taking the player's name and the number of players are not certain, which is dynamic, it can be 2 players, 4 players, 7, 10, whatever number of players you want, you can put it. And then you can spread the names as it is. And then you spin the bottle and it should be stopping on some name. So here we are using a static array, which is defined. But when you have a dynamic number of players, you can simply divide 360 with the number of players and you can get an array where your bottle should be stopping. It may sound harder, but if you will try to implement by yourself, it's very easy. Maybe you can try in React.js, that is very easy to handle. And if you want me to create a project from scratch for you, where you are giving the number of people, then rendering those names and stopping the bottles on the different dynamic names, I can definitely do that. If you want, let me know into the comment sections. And if you really learn from this video, and if you really enjoy from this video, please hit the like button. It will always motivate me to make lots of interview questions video for you. So thanks again. Thanks for watching. Keep learning, keep growing. Bye bye.